Like and subscribe and click the bell icon to get new video updates.
Labour, Greens look set to push businesses to adopt tougher emission targets. The future of Australia's biggest emitters looks uncertain under the new Labour government, with the Greens and climate change-focused independents set for a loud voice. Companies, from airlines to miners, say they are already a step ahead on carbon reduction, but many of their targets are below what will be implemented under Labour. The question now is, how far can industry be pushed, especially if the Greens end up with a balance of power? Labour went to the election with a pledge to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 43% within just 8 years. Space to play or pause, M to mute, left and right arrows to seek, up and down arrows for volume. Many companies already have their own 2030 targets, including the major airline Qantas. The AS-listed company's target is a 25% reduction in net emissions by 2030, which is below Labour's pledge and even further below the 75% target the Greens will push for. We need to make sure that we're moving at a pace that allows us to keep that important part of travel and keeps that investment in the country, Qantas Chief Executive Alan Joyce said in response to questions from ABC News. Not all industries can decarbonise at the same time, in the same time frame. That is recognised. Qantas competitor Virgin Australia has not yet set a 2030 target. Virgin Chief Executive Jayne Hrdlicka has said the airline will work with the new government. We look forward to ambitious targets with respect to climate change, Ms Hrdlicka told ABC News. Ms Hrdlicka says more investment in sustainable fuel industries in Australia can help business hit higher targets. We look forward to conversations with them, the Labour government, about sustainable aviation fuels and the opportunity to make a very profound difference with respect to the environment, and we expect those conversations will start in earnest next week, she said. Coal and gas projects were already risky before Labour. Outside of air travel, Labour's win has major ramifications for the gas and coal industry. That industry was already grappling with its future viability. Read more. Sustainable energy such as solar power has already gained prominence and carbon-intensive energy is becoming less profitable. Just a few months ago, Origin Energy sought approval to shut down Australia's largest coal-fired power plant 7 years early. Rio Tinto has been selling its coal mines and is unlikely to approve new ones, while BHP has also committed to an exit and has a 30% carbon reduction goal for 2030. The Big Four banks have publicly committed to stop financing coal by 2030 or 2035, although critics argue they still invest each billions in fossil fuels such as gas. Labour also wants to impose emissions limits on the 215 most polluting facilities. The details are yet to be determined, but it could involve changing the current safeguard mechanism introduced by the Abbott government in 2016. This mechanism covers Australia's biggest carbon polluters, which emit more than 100,000 tonnes in carbon dioxide equivalent, CO2e, covered emissions in a financial year. It impacts businesses across a broad range of industry sectors, including electricity generation, mining, oil and gas extraction, manufacturing, transport, and waste. Under the mechanism, these businesses must ensure the facility's net emissions do not exceed the baseline determined by the Clean Energy Regulator. There have been suggestions that Labour may increase that baseline. Industry group says companies could trip over if targets rushed. A lobby group that represents manufacturers is urging the new government to set workable timelines. Group's head of climate, energy and environment policy, Tennant Reed, says most businesses are committed to net zero emissions by 2050 or well before. We could trip over our own feet as we try and move ahead, he said. If we impose such high costs on local businesses that are uneven relative to those their competitors face, that they lose market share or lose profitability, we're going to have some problems. He says the safeguard mechanism for industry is a more effective way of meeting climate commitments without sending businesses into ruin. I don't think anybody argues that we can get to 100% reductions overnight, he said. Read more. Ms Hrdlicka, the head of climate change and sustainability for consultancy firm EY, says the makeup of the new parliament will usher in a new debate on climate targets for 2035. It is fair to say that businesses are ahead of where government has been in Australia for the last 10 years or so, Ms Hrdlicka said. Up until now, you really had industry voluntarily taking a lot of action around reducing their emissions. The review and the tightening of the safeguard mechanism is going to bring around that compliance driver and really begin to push